And again, like just the legacy of that music is just incredible. John, also a great solar performer, which he did more of in later years. And really that was some beautiful stuff as well. So Tony, his singing partner, passed away 4 years ago on the weekend of Northern Roots. And then so the following year for Northern Roots, we did a tribute to Tony here in this room. And John was not with us but in person, but he was actually online. We were projecting John on the screen, and John was talking about his history with Tony and so on. So now here we are. So it might be kind of bad luck to be in this.
Stay tuned for next year.
It's only on the screen. Right.
So we're going to be doing.
I'm the oldest one here, so
I'm older than you.
I should not have opened that door. So we're going to do a nice little set, hopefully for John tonight with this lineup of people. But we're going to be just sort of blasting through a bunch of songs. We're going to do some songs here this afternoon, but also like taking a little more opportunity to kind of share some reflections on John and and his importance and etc. I'm going to turn to Andy Davis here on the end to kick things off.
I'm always comfortable on this end, because this is where I was in Noel So Be Clear, on this end.
Keyboard's right behind
I
you.
did want to mention that I brought a copy of an interview done with John Roberts by the Vermont Folklife Center, and there's a sign-up sheet in the front of it. If you want to, not only an audio recording, MP3, but a PDF, it's a wonderful tale of a young man who came to America and did good. And he really, when Tony was alive, Tony was quite the raconteur, as I'm sure you all remember. He always knew how to start talking, and John was often the quieter one who waited for just the right moment to insert a brilliant piece of wit, to which John would try to, Tony would then try to outdo on the spot. So it was always quite a little bit of a linguistic wrestling match there. But when John got interviewed, he started off by saying, I don't really know what to say. I wasn't usually the one who was asked. And they said, well, this is your chance. And let me tell you, John rose to the occasion. He was a very well-spoken, well-read student of history, music, a stickler for detail. He was a music engraver as well as a performer, and he made his day job was setting type, musical type for many, many instruction books in many styles, from the blues to Morris music to whatever, 5-string banjo tablature. He was a real detail kind of person. So sign up on that, and I'll just go home and send them all out to folks that are interested. It's a really nice thing to make a cup of tea, put your feet up, and just listen to John talk about how he met Tony, how they toured the country, and how they sort of became John and Tony. Keith mentioned his legacy. His music on CD fills one of the CD tables out there. So if you look, you'll see stuff that he did on his own, things that he did with Deborah Cowan, and lots of things he did with Tony. So I thought I would do this song. It kind of sets a bit of a scene. It's not a traditional song. It was written by Malvina Reynolds. And it kind of sets the scene for John and Tony in the early days. And it was also set, the story takes place with the context of a winter storm. So it also seems today like a bit of a topical song. And it wasn't done with the chorus. There's no chorus, but if you pay attention, you'll see that you get to repeat the last line of each stanza. And I hope you'll join in lustily on the tail. The characters in this are numerous. More than I'm going to mention now, but two of them were Tom and Mary Tolino. Tom worked at Marlborough College, and that's what brought to Tony and John to this area. They got a job sharing one position at Marlborough College, teaching this sort of program on folk music and psychology. Okay?
Wow.
And anyway, this is a true story. We'll see how it goes. The winter came early in '72. with a hell of a storm coming down. When Mary and Tom bundled into the car, 'cause Mary was hospital bound. They couldn't get far, so they rang on the phone to get Tony and John on the line. You better come quick, said Tom to John, 'cause Mary has come to her time. Try that. You better come quick, said Tom to John, 'cause Mary has come to her time. A tree has fallen athwart of the road. We're stuck here and cannot get by. So our two British heroes start driving along, right into the hurricane's eye. They drove, then they ran up the MacArthur's Hill and helped Mary over the log. Then carried her down through the deep drifted snow. It was more than a mile to the road. Then carried her down through the deep drifted snow. 'Twas more than a mile to the road. They leaned on the horn and they drove like the wind. You bastards, get out of the way. For the Tolino baby of Mary and Tom is due to be boarding this day. Said Mary, I tell you the baby is here. Said John, hold on for a bit. The Brattleboro is still 2 miles away and the hospital's further on yet. Brattleboro is still 2 miles away and the hospital's further on yet. But the head of the baby appeared into view. Tom took the shoulders in hand, and Tony and John were as white as a sheet and driving as fast as they can. They wrapped the young creature in John's ragged coat from his toes to his little round head. Then the baby said, Ma, what you doing out here? You ought to be home in your bed. The baby said, Ma, what you doing out here? You ought to be home in your bed. They pulled up the car at the hospital door, and Tony, he hardly could speak, which was very rare. A baby was born in the back of our car. Said the nurse, that's the 3rd one this week. The doctor, he was the philosopher kind. His thinking was easy and large. There's many a kid gets their first start in life in the back of a second-hand Dodge. The many a kid gets their first life in the back of a second-hand Dodge. They rolled out a gurney and brought in the 2, both mother and child doing fine. When the nurse asked the question, whose baby is this? All 3 of the men answered, mine. Then Tony and John went on down to the pub to get them a jug of the brew. And they told all the folks who were drinking that day the story I'm telling to you. And they told all the folks who were drinking that day the story I'm telling to you. Yes, they told all the folks who were gathered around of the babe who was born on the road. Robin Anthem, and they all drank a toast to the mother and child and the heroes who carried the load. Robin Anthony John, who was born in the car, that was the new baby's name. And the bartender set up the drinks on the house, and I hope you'll be doing the same. Yes, the bartender set up the drinks on the house, and I hope you'll be doing the same. when he knew I was starting to sing this song, he said, "There's one detail that bugs me in that. My coat was not ragged. It was a new coat." So,
Well, we'll just go down the line, I think.
Okey doke. Well, I'll go. So, well, I had the very lucky experience of getting to listen to John and Tony and Fred and Andy practicing from a very young age, and I think you know, I kind of maybe took it for granted a little bit, because you know what you know when you're a kid, you know. But then I got to college, and you know, I kind of came onto this scene at college. There was, you know, a fairly robust scene of folk singing and folk dancing, and there was kind of this culture that already existed of when I got there, at least, of people getting together and singing late into the night, and it was all of the songs, like probably at least a third to half of the songs that people were singing were all Tony and John songs. I was like, oh, well, I know all these. and it was actually funny. I feel like that was a point in my life where I actually started to learn a lot of those songs, for a lot of the ones that weren't Noel songs more. And this was one that we sang a lot back then. You can imagine, you know, a lot of college kids sitting around the house singing this song, and I didn't actually realize it until we were talking the other day that John wrote this one, and it's got a great chorus. So sing along. I have been told that this establishment that is discussed in this song is no longer open.
yeah.
But it's a good one. It has some boggy moments, which many songs that John sang did. So you get what you get. We'll start with the chorus. So eat Bertha's mussels, they're the best there is by far. You can eat them in the dining room, you can eat them in the bar. So when you're ashore in Baltimore and you fancy a bite to eat, and just follow your nose to Bertha's, you'll be in for a rare old treat. Well, a sailor came to Bertha's with a problem most severe. His manly pride had atrophied from a voyage of 40 years. So he ate a plate of mussels. Now he sings in a different key. His jib boom set right, he'll be in there tonight, and he'll never go back to sea. So eat Bertha's mussels, they're the best there is by far. You can eat them in the dining room, you can eat them in the bar. So when you're ashore in Baltimore and you fancy a bite to eat, just follow your nose to Bertha's, you'll be in for a rare old treat. Now a lady came to Bertha's who wanted a daughter or a son. Now the doctors had said with a shake of the head that she couldn't have either one. So she ate a plate of mussels and went home to her husband dear. She tuned up his croup, and I tell you the truth, she had triplets the very next. So eat Bertha's mussels, they're the best there is by far. You can eat them in the dining room, you can eat them in the bar. So when you're ashore in Baltimore and you fancy a in for a rare old treat. They will cure your diarrhea, cure your constipation too. Just swallow a box for the chicken pox, for the measles, or the flu. So if you fancy a healthy life, get your daily dosage straight. A plate a day of Bertha's mussels, and you'll live till you're 98. So eat Bertha's mussels, they're the best there is by far. You can eat them in the dining room, you can eat them in the bar. Or when you're ashore in Baltimore, fancy a bite to eat, just follow your nose to Bertha's, you'll be in for a rare old treat.
A couple of things came into mind while both Andy and Arthur were talking, and the first I want to point out was, you notice how Arthur's sort of sings with it, moving his arm like directly. John did that, I think. I picked that up.
Yeah.
And it was probably from those many times that Arthur would bring down his sleeping bag from upstairs. We used to practice at Andy's house for Noel, and he would bring down his sleeping bag and sit right in the middle of our practice room.
My daughter was here too, and say, I did too.
Well, I remember mostly Arthur because he was probably there.
Nothing, the Darty Ram, nothing gets you to go to sleep like the Darty Ram.
But Andy's song reminded me that that old Dodge that's mentioned is what that was the original Noel Sing We Clear vehicle in 1975 when we put the band together. That was their car, and so we drove in all over the place going to gigs, piling instruments. We had fewer instruments, and we didn't travel with sound at that point, so we were able to fit instruments in the trunk, and in the back seat, Steve Woodruff, who was our original fourth member, and I sat in the back and with instruments all over the top of us, and John and Tony ran in the front, rode in the front. So it wasn't until 10 years later that the new guy came into the band, and Steve moved to
He's talking about the young guy.
Well, after about 20 years, Andy said, think we can stop calling me the new guy? We said, no. Then he started calling himself the young guy. But anyway, back to John. I actually met John before I met Tony in 1972 at the Gotta Get Gone outside of Albany. I'm not sure I can't remember
It's
the name.
still going
of the place.
on.
Is it, Tim?
Yep.
And he was there. I don't know where Tony was. He was there, and he was very welcoming guy. He was just very, anyway, I loved meeting him then. And then, of course, as Andy referred to Tony, when we got together, and Tony did most of the talking, even when the four of us were putting the band together. And it was actually Tony's idea, but John had an incredible lot of input to that group. And my relationship with John was mostly through Noel Sing We Clear. We toured for 40 years, and then Andy and I kept, all four of us started a weekly Zoom during the pandemic, and then after Tony died, we kept that going with John. And so really, and the last time we saw him was in his hospital room.
And we still Zoom even though we're neighbors, just to keep it going.
Well, right. Anyway, I thought I'd like to sing a song from the Noel repertoire that John used to sing all the time, in the second half of our iteration after Andy joined us, and it's the Wren Boys song, and I'm sure many of you know the chorus and join in. It's one of these songs that has a coordination test in the middle of the chorus. The wren, the king of all birds, St. Stephen's Day, was caught in the furs. You've caught him there, as you can see, pasting him up in a holly tree. Hurrah, me boys, hurrah! Hurrah, me boys, hurrah! Knock at the knocker and ring at the bell. What will you give us for singing so well? Singing so well, singing so well. Give us a copper for singing so well. I have a little box under me arm, a penny will do, a penny or two will do us no harm. Up with the kettle and down with the pot, give us a copper and then we'll be off. Hurrah, me boys, hurrah, hurrah, me boys, hurrah. Knock at the knocker and ring at the bell. What will you give us for singing so well? Singing so well, singing so well. Give us a copper for singing so well. Christmas Day I turn the spit, I burn my finger, I feel it yet between me finger and me thumb. There's a blister as big as a plum. Hurrah, me boys, hurrah! Hurrah, me boys, hurrah! Knock at the knocker and ring at the bell. What will you give us for singing so well? Singing so well, singing so well. Give us a copper for singing so well. God bless the mistress and the men, unto your house we bring the wren. Though he is little, his family is great. Come out, and give us a treat. Hurrah, me boys, hurrah! Hurrah, me boys, hurrah! Knock at the knocker and ring at the bell. What will you give us for singing so well? Singing so well, singing so well. Give us a copper for singing so well. Great. Singing that John's key, I realized.
I feel compelled to say it. I have a bunch of kids. They're all grown up now, and they grew up listening to Noel sing me clear and going to the concerts here. And they all agree that John Roberts' voice is the voice of Christmas. Now and always will be. So.
Well, he did play Father Christmas in the memory.
Well, this is probably, yeah, I know, but you know.
You got the
So,
franchise.
yeah, thanks. I'm really in awe of all of you here, up here and out there, who had the opportunity to hear John and Tony, or John even solo, many, many years before I did. I actually met John for the first time at the very first Northern Roots Festival in 2007. And he and Tony did a workshop. They taught a copper song or two, and I'd already heard like this kind of singing through some Rebels recordings, but I didn't know anybody in real life who did this sort of thing. And so I was kind of late to the party. But I understand,
Made up for it.
well, from some of the stories that I heard from Tony, who I was pretty close with, and also from John himself, that in the early days when they were singing together, they kind of started out with a little shtick regarding hats. So I just thought I would wear a hat in honor of John, and they like tried to be funny with hats, and I wasn't there. I don't know if anybody here was and actually witnessed that, but this is my...
They never wore hats, that was a joke.
Yeah, you know, yeah.
He was playing on it.
Probably. I've seen photos, I have seen photos.
They were hats.
They wore hats. So one of the things that well, first of all, I want to say one of the things that I was always very impressed by in John's singing is his repertoire. He loved really wordy songs. He just loved words, and he loved poetry, and he loved the twisty things that words do, and he knew so many complicated songs. And in preparation for this festival, I did not learn the complicated songs, because there were other good ones too. But they're on my list. I really want to dig into that, and I know other folks here have learned them. But one of the things that I also appreciated is that John liked a song that had a plot twist. He really liked ballads, he liked story songs that had something you don't expect in them. And so this song I want to sing with you is one of those. And I want to make sure I do it in the right key. There's a refrain to it, so you do have to listen kind of closely to pick up the words, but they do repeat, and you're welcome to sing along. It's of a brisk young tailor, a story I'll relate. He lived at an inn called the Ram and the Gate. The Ram and the Gate was the place where he did dwell, and wine and women's company he loved exceeding well. So well, so well, so well, me boys, so well, and wine and women's company he loved exceeding well. Let's do the refrain again. So well, so well, so well, me boys, so well, and wine and women's company he loved exceeding well. One evening this young tailor was drinking a jug of wine. Not being used to so much drink, it caused his nose to shine. It caused his face to shine, just like the rising sun. And he swore he'd have a bonny lass before the night was done. Was done, was done, was done, me boys, was done. He swore he'd have a bonny lass before the night was done. So he took her in his arms and he called her his dear honey. While they were a-talking, she was fingering of his money, fingering of his money, when the tailor smiled and said, if you lend me your petticoats, I'll dance like a maid. A maid, a maid, a maid, me boys, a maid. If you lend me your petticoats, I'll dance like a maid. So the tailor took his breeches off and the petticoats put on. The tailor danced a dance while the lady sang a song. The tailor danced a dance while she played a pretty tune. She waltzed the tailor's breeches right out of the room. The room, the room, the room, me boys, the room. She waltzed the tailor's breeches right out of the room. Oh, was ever a poor tailor undone as I'm undone? Me watch and me wallet and me breeches are all gone. If ever I dare go out, they will call me garden flower. If ever I get my breeches back, I'll never dance no more. No more, no more, no more, me boys, no more. If ever I get my breeches back, I'll never dance no more. Also, I think John said at one point that no tailors ever get the good end of the deal in the handies.
Well, as Amanda was saying, John, and as everybody here knows and I think would not acknowledge, John's song repertoire was huge, and just his knowledge like around the songs was like encyclopedic. And for me, when John passed, like it was a moment of just being very aware. We have a lot of his songs still, but like I would sometimes just call John to like ask him about a certain song or to explain something, or if he knew other versions of songs. And I mean, there's nothing online. There's no Google or search. I don't think could match John's ability to kind of just.
But he wrote a lot of what's on Google, in fact. Through Mudcat in particular and some other archives.
Yeah, he was
His
very
handle is Anglo, and if you search Anglo, he during the pandemic averaged like 5 or 6 posts a week, answering people's queries, correcting people, mentioning
telling stories about wearing hats and
mentioning unknown details that nobody was even raising an argument, and
But and I think another gift that John had, along with Tony, like they had big repertoires, but they also just had a real sense of great songs. Like the quality of songs in their repertoires was amazing. And so it became like, it's like so very tempting to kind of like hear one of their songs and like, I want to learn that one, and then want to learn the next one. And you sort of think, well, it's like nice to have like a diversity of sources as a singer, but it was hard to like not want to keep going back to that well. So there was a Northern Roots one time when John was here, and John said, and no one has ever actually done this to me, but John said, I have a song for you. It's a song that John had found, and he worked on, and ultimately didn't feel like it was a song for him. And he said, perhaps you could try this song. And like for me, like that's like that's kind of like another like reflection of like just the care like that he would take in like selecting a song. John wouldn't just like learn a song and say, okay, I'm gonna do this song now. He would learn a song, try it out, and if it wasn't right, you know, if it wasn't right for him, it wasn't very good, he'd give it to me. Anyway, as I say, it's the only time that someone has passed on a song like that to me, so I kind of treasure that thing. And it's a song that was actually in it's in the Flanders collection, the famous collection of New England ballads. But I think John knew it mostly from the singing of Margaret MacArthur, because that was the recording that he gave me. And it was actually a song from the mid-1700s, and it was actually kind of one of these songs that was a composed song by this well-known songwriter of the day, and then it kind of sort of made its way kind of into the folk tradition. And it kind of has this has like a kind of a weird tonality, like there's like notes that kind of change, accidentals kind of over the course of the song. Anyway, so it's called Black-Eyed Susan. Downs the ship lay moored, streamers waving in the wind, as dark-eyed Susan came on board, inquiring for her absent friend. And tell me yet, jovial sailors, tell me true, does my love Willie stand among your crew? Rocked by the billows to and fro, soon as this well-known voice he heard, he sighed and cast his eyes below. The cord flew swiftly through his glowing hands, and quick as lightning on the deck he stands. Susan, Susan, lovely Sue, my vows will ever true remain. Let me cast off these falling tears, we only part to meet again. The noblest captain in the British fleet would envy Willie's lips, these kisses sweet. Landsmen say they'll try and tempt your constant mind. They'll tell these sailors when away in every port a mistress find. Oh yes, believe them when they tell thee so, for thou art present wheresoever I go. I sail, thine eyes are like the diamonds bright, thy breath is Africa's spicy gale, thy skin is ivory so white. The fairest breezes wheresoever I go, they bring me memories of my lovely Sue. Bosun gave the dreadful word, their sails, their swelling bosoms spread. She could no longer stay on board, she turned away and hung her head. Her little boat unwilling rowed to land, and cried adieu and waved her lily hand.
with his rejects, man, he had high standards.
Well, you know, I mean, it's not even a question of the quality
Yeah,
of the song,
it
it's
was a
like,
match.
it's about like, you know, like, I mean, I'm sure you guys have sort of gone through this, like, you get a song, and you kind of really like the song, but as a singer, it's really important, you kind of find like your way of doing it. Maybe if you play an instrument, like, find an accompaniment that works well for you. I'm sure that was probably something that John thought about there, you know, and sometimes like it takes a long time to kind of figure, I have a song that took me 15 years before I came up with like a chord thing that I was happy with. So, I'm sure John, you know, if he'd had a few more years, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, but just another, again, from like, for me, a big part of the takeaway is just the generosity of John, and being willing to share stuff like that.
I was wondering if Sarah Gray had slipped in during all this. Yeah. Would you like to share a song? Because I bet you know John, you have known John longer than anyone, I'm guessing, in this room. Do you want to come up and just share a song? Sarah Gray is here doing a lot of work with ballads, and she's introduce yourself, tell us how you met John.
Is it okay if I grab a banjo or?
Oh, grab it, man.
Sure. Do you need another moment to kind of get settled?
Well, that's okay.
Why don't you take a moment? I just wanted to mention something. It was a mention of wit. And I noticed there's been a lot of laughter today. People have been chuckling, and I just think that's very appropriate for remembering John. We often, when we were driving in Noel Sing We Clear, we were often refining the Mummers play throughout the season by reading the New York Times. And one time I read the headline article about Bernie Madoff, who had stolen all these people's retirement funds. And when I got done with the article, it was quiet in the van, and then from the back seat, John just goes, "Made off?" Anyway, he had a brilliant, and if you didn't get John's jokes, you had to be darn careful on the drive home, because they could hit you.
Well, I remember just kind of on a theme that you mentioned before, like John and Tony, you know, because Tony would just kind of like, you know, hold forth, and Tony was, as part of his background to a song, he said, and you know, and this was very influenced by that famous Constable, the painting by Constable in Britain, and John said, I believe that Constable painting was done by Turner, actually.
Anyone up here who's not been
Very-
corrected by John?
I used to say, Tony had a good story, John knew what happened.
Yeah.
All right, Sarah.
What do you got to share with us? How did you meet John?
Well, I knew him in Britain before he ever moved here, because I would go over and do tours, and he was living in Kidderminster, the area he came from, up in the northeast, and he was a resident at the Kidderminster Folk Club. Well, it was called the Rowing Club. I don't know why. Well, it was on the river, and we got to know each other, and we shared a real interest in songs. So we crossed paths. We always sort of talked about that a lot. That almost exactly at the same time that I crossed over and moved to Britain, to Scotland, he moved over here. And so there was a sort of a hole, you know, where we didn't get to see as much of each other. But when I did get over, and when we were be at Old Songs or some festival, he loved banjo, and so I taught him to play. So,
Thank you for doing that.
well, he just took to it like a duck to water, honestly. And it was so lovely because he put the song first. That was so beautiful. You know, quite often people will put the instrument first, and the song becomes a secondary kind of an afterthought. And he never did that. It was just and this is a song we used to do. We did a Zoom thing during COVID together. I don't know if anybody saw it at all. I can't remember which year it was of COVID, but he did it from his house and I did it from, did I do it from Middlebury, Dave? Or was I still in Maine at that time? Yeah, I was still in Maine, yeah. But this is one that I taught him years ago called Cherry River Line. I don't know if he ever sang it on his own or not, but, one more. Song from Kentucky. And I think it was one of the first ones that he learned by, singing and playing banjo together. Now, Joan, you remind me how it goes. This is the chorus. Well, it's lonesome down here. Oh, so lonesome all the time. Lonesome down here on the Cherry River line. Well, it's lonesome down here. Oh, so lonesome all the time. Lonesome down here on the Cherry River line. Met a girl on the mountain. She treated me so fine. I went back to see her. She was always on my mind. But I found her with another beneath the spreading pine. We were hugging and kissing and drinking homemade wine. Well, it's lonesome down here. Oh, so lonesome all the time. Oh, lonesome down here on the Cherry
lonesome down here on the Cherry River line.
Do we have a short chorus or something?
I got one that you can do. This is, John told me, was one of the first songs when they met as college students here. They met in this country, I think down in Swarthmore.
Cornell.
Cornell,
Cornell, yeah.
one of those famous colleges. And this, John said, was one of the first songs that they worked out, one of the early repertoire. Let's see.
They were wearing hats when they did it.
They were. That's why I wore mine.
Good.
Time, it is a precious thing. Time brings all things to your mind. Time with all its labors, along with all its joys, and its time brings all things to an end. Oh, once I had a sprig of time. I thought it never would decay, until a saucy sailor chanced upon my way, and he stole away that bonny bunch of time. For time, it is a precious thing. Time brings all things to your mind. Time with all its labors, along with all its joys, and its time brings all things to an end. This sailor, he gave to me a rose. I thought it never would decay. He gave it to me to keep me well-minded of the night he stole my bonny bunch of time. For time, it is a precious thing. Time brings all things to your mind. Time with all its labors, along with all its joys, and its time brings all things to an end. So come all you lovers brisk and gay, all you that flourish in your prime, beware and take care, and keep your garden fair, and let no one steal your bonny bunch of time. For time, it is a precious thing. Time brings all things to your mind. Time with all its labors, along with all its joys, and let time bring all things to an end.
Perfect.
That's an ending.
All right, that brings our session to an end.
Thank you all for being here.
Andy, Arthur, Fred, Sarah, Amanda,